He didn't lose his job because he was lazy. He didn't lose it because he broke the law. He lost it because of one small mistake, one nobody ever warned him about. At the time, it didn't even feel like a mistake. It felt normal, responsible, even smart. But in America, some rules are invisible, rules you don't realize exist, until the moment they cost you everything. 3 weeks after that decision, he sat alone in his apartment, staring at his phone, reading the same sentence again and again. "We've decided to move forward without you." No explanation, no second chance, just silence. And in that silence, one question kept repeating in his mind. How did it go wrong so fast? When he first came to America, he believed what many people believe, that effort matters, that discipline is rewarded, that if you show up, do your job, and stay out of trouble, things will eventually work out. Back home, America was spoken about like a system, not perfect, but fair. You follow the rules, you work hard, you move forward. So he arrived prepared to work, prepared to struggle, prepared to start from the bottom. What he wasn't prepared for was how little anyone would explain. The early days were exactly how people described them: shared apartments, long commutes, jobs that felt temporary. But he didn't complain. This was part of the process. He told himself, everyone goes through this. This is what building looks like. And then came the opportunity. Not a dream job, not a miracle, just stability. A steady schedule, reliable pay, a chance to finally stop worrying every night. To him, it meant everything. On his first day, he arrived early, too early. He watched how people spoke, how they moved, how they joked. He listened more than he talked, not because he was shy, but because he didn't want to make mistakes. Back home, respect meant silence. It meant observing before speaking. So when instructions came quickly and expectations weren't fully clear, he nodded. When something didn't make sense, he told himself he'd figure it out later. Asking questions felt risky. He didn't want to be the problem, didn't want to be the confusing one, didn't want to stand out. So he adjusted quietly. And for a while, it worked. Then came the day everything changed. There was no argument, no raised voices, no warning signs, just a short instruction near the end of a long shift. It sounded casual, almost optional. He did what he thought was reasonable. He finished his assigned work and left. That was it. No scene, no drama, just a normal decision that would quietly follow him. The next morning he was called into the office. The room felt colder. The tone was different. They explained that what he had done wasn't just incorrect. It showed a lack of initiative, a lack of awareness, a failure to understand expectations. He tried to explain, tried to say he misunderstood, but explanations didn't change the outcome. Because in America, intent doesn't always matter. Perception does. And once that perception is formed, it's hard to erase. From that moment on, things shifted. Conversations became shorter. Instructions came with less patience. He worked harder, stayed later, volunteered more, trying to fix something he couldn't fully see, trying to correct a mistake no one would clearly define. And slowly, a realization set in. The most dangerous mistakes in America aren't always the loud ones. They're the quiet ones, the ones you don't know you've made until it's already too late. The morning after the meeting, he didn't sleep. He lay on the small apartment bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking through every word, every action. What did he miss? Where did he go wrong?
Was this the end of everything he had worked for? Even the walls seemed to close in. The city outside his window buzzed with life, unaware of the quiet panic inside him. People laughed, rushed, lived, and he felt invisible. It wasn't the first time he'd felt that way in America, but this time it mattered. This time it could cost him everything. At work, he tried to keep normal.
He smiled. He nodded. He repeated tasks exactly as instructed, but he could feel it, the distance, the hesitation, the way his supervisor's eyes lingered a moment too long before moving on. Every small interaction became a test, every conversation a minefield. Even the simplest question, "Did you finish this?" now carried weight. Would his answer make things worse? Would it be the final push that ended him completely? Lunch breaks became the worst part of the day. He watched co-workers laugh and joke in ways he didn't understand. Cultural references, slang, inside jokes. He sat quietly, smiling when appropriate, nodding when necessary, but never speaking too much. It was exhausting. Not the work itself, not the lifting, cleaning, or organizing, but the mental strain, the constant calculation of what was safe to say, what was safe to do, what version of himself was allowed to exist here. And the thought that one misstep could undo everything haunted him like a shadow he could never escape. He started leaving early, walking alone in the streets at night, sometimes just to breathe, sometimes just to remind himself he existed outside the walls that had started to feel like a cage. He replayed every interaction, every instruction, every comment. The smallest words now carried enormous weight. What did "good job" really mean? Did a nod mean approval, or was it impatience? Was he doing enough or too much? He didn't know, and the uncertainty was crushing. One evening he met another immigrant on the train, a man his age, quiet, eyes wary, carrying the same suitcase. They exchanged small talk. Then slowly stories came out. The man had been fired months earlier. No warning, no explanation. Just like him. The similarities were unsettling. And then came the advice he never expected. Here, you can't assume people will explain. You have to watch, ask, speak, make sure they see you. At first, he didn't understand. He thought he had been doing that. But slowly he realized he had been invisible all along. Back at his apartment, he sat with a notebook. He wrote down every instruction he'd received that week, every interaction, every smile, every pause, every comment. He was trying to find the invisible rule he had broken. And then it hit him. It wasn't about effort. It wasn't about intelligence. It wasn't about following instructions. It was about communication, about visibility. America didn't punish mistakes the way his home country did. It punished what it didn't see. It rewarded the ones who made sure their work, their presence, their intentions were undeniable. The realization was both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because he now understood the subtle rules he had ignored. Rules no one explained, rules that weren't in any manual, any training, or any class. Liberating because now he could adapt, not by changing who he was, but by learning the language of this new world. The turning point was coming. He didn't know when, he didn't know how, but he was no longer passive, no longer waiting for instructions, no longer hoping someone would notice. Now he was preparing. And for the first time in weeks, he felt a small spark of hope. He woke up that morning with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in weeks. Not confidence, not certainty, but a quiet, deliberate focus. He knew the invisible rules now. He understood that effort alone wasn't enough. And for the first time, he was ready to act differently. At work, everything felt heavier. Every task carried weight. Every instruction demanded attention, but this time he didn't wait. He asked questions politely, clarified expectations, repeated instructions back to ensure understanding. It felt awkward at first, but slowly he noticed a difference.
The same co-workers who had ignored him now glanced at him with acknowledgement. The same supervisor who had remained distant now gave small nods of approval. Then came the test. Not a promotion, not a big presentation, just a routine project with a new critical responsibility. If he failed, he risked being invisible again, or worse, repeating the same costly mistake. His hands shook as he reviewed the instructions. He double-checked the email. He walked through every step in his mind. The day passed slowly. Every interaction was measured, every decision deliberate. By lunchtime, he was exhausted, not from the work itself, but from the vigilance. Every minute was a test. Every glance could reveal success or failure. And then it happened, a small victory. One of his co-workers asked a question he had anticipated. He answered clearly, explained carefully, followed up with an extra detail no one had expected. A pause, a smile, the nod. It was subtle, quiet, almost invisible, but he felt it in his chest. He had been seen, he had been acknowledged, and for the first time in weeks, he didn't feel like a mistake waiting to happen. The next few days passed differently. He applied the same approach: observe, learn, communicate, make his effort undeniable, and the results were small but real. His supervisor called him into the office for feedback, positive feedback. A coworker asked for his advice. His tasks were noticed without him asking for recognition. It wasn't a miracle, it wasn't instant, but it was progress. Proof that one can recover even after nearly losing everything. At night, he sat alone in his apartment. The city outside hummed with life, and he realized something profound. The American dream isn't a guarantee. It isn't about showing up, working hard, or even being smart. It's about learning a language most people don't teach, the language of visibility, communication, and subtle rules. And mistakes, they're not the end, they're the lesson. By the end of the week, he smiled at himself in the mirror. Not because he had achieved everything, not because the journey was easy, but because he had survived. He had learned, he had adapted, he had found a way to be seen in a place where invisibility is easy. And he knew now the dream wasn't ruined. It was waiting, quietly, patiently, for those who learned how to navigate it. Be part of this community. Subscribe to Crossing Realities for more real immigrant stories that educate, inspire, and keep you on the edge of your seat. Like this video if it made you think about the challenges of starting over. Comment below, have you ever faced a rule you didn't know existed? Share your story and let's learn together. Remember, every story here is more than just entertainment. It's a guide, a mirror, and a reminder that you are never alone. And if you want to see what happens next when immigrants face unexpected challenges, click on the next video. Your journey, your lessons, your growth. This is only the beginning.